Okay, as Jan has already introduced, my name is Charlotte Strohmeier. You find my website on that slide, but also on the picture that I think you will or were already able to download, which is a background for a strategy picture that we are going to fill today. And so all in all, this is going to be about storytelling visually for strategy. And in the first part, I will talk a little bit about why this is good and important and necessary. And in the other part, we will start to do something together with it. And as Jan already said, then we will go to Remo and do that in groups. And I hope to see everyone at Remo later on. Make sure that you have the few things that we already told you to get today. I list them here. So please check whether you have everything. Now is still time to get those things to your desk. So let's start with the first exercise for beginners and pros. And both will learn something different from it. Because for those who are beginners and who just say, I can't draw, maybe when you draw a figure, you draw a stick figure, like a little circle for the head, a line for the body, 2 lines for the arms, 2 lines for the legs. The problem is you can't really do that much with it. You can't really show the clothes of this person or let them hold something in their hands. It's a bit difficult like that. So I'll show you a better stick figure now. And for those who can already draw really well, they learn how to simplify things, because we'll just use a very, very simple drawing. It starts with a circle, and the body is only 1 line. And then you can add arms and face the way you want them. So let's try this out. You all have your paper and your pen. So draw this little figure now. I will show you once again. Has everybody done it? If you've already drawn this figure, let's add some more. Add something that will make this a portrait of you. For example, your glasses, your hair, what you are wearing today. If you're holding your coffee in your hands, draw it like that. Maybe you have an impressive beard like Jan. Draw your beard. So has everybody completed their self-portrait? If you have finished that now, let's add one more thing. Now let's add something that symbolizes your job. One symbol. Doesn't need to be something complicated. For example, if you're a trainer or a coach, maybe draw a flip chart next to the person. Or if you're an accountant, draw a little calculator in the hands, something like that. If you're a coach, maybe a coach hat. Think of something, maybe that you are using while you are working every day, or something that is a symbol for the things you do. And in the end, when you have finished your little portrait of you, you can take a picture with your smartphone and later on send it to us so we can make a collage of all those drawings. I hope everybody has their figure ready now. If you don't, it doesn't matter, you can complete it later on. There will be enough time. Just one more time, and I will show you what I did in preparation for today. I also drew myself, the curly hair, the glasses, and what I use for my job. I drew a pencil, but today I have a digital pencil so I can draw on my screen and you can see it. Do you recognize the question I wrote? Maybe now that you are working from home, some of you might be working from home, and your children are at home too. Maybe they ask you in the last days or weeks, what are you doing when you're at the office, when you're sitting at your desk? What are you doing really? And of course you can avoid the question by simply saying, I'm working, I'm busy. But if you want to give a more in-depth answer, you may realize that it can be quite hard to really explain, especially to someone who you have to explain it to from the very beginning. And that's why I like this quote a lot. It's by Albert Einstein. And it goes, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it yourself. And to be honest, some people have it easier than others when it comes to their jobs. For example, if you're a doctor, or if you are a firefighter, then good for you. Your kid probably already knows everything about what you do. And why does your kid know it? Because there are a lot of different picture books that explain stuff like that. And if you are having one of the other jobs that don't show up in picture books, you now have a chance to create your own picture book picture of your job. And think about that at home. Maybe you want to draw a picture and try to explain it to your kid if you have them, or to somebody else who doesn't understand what you are doing. So before we start, let me just give you a few facts about the usefulness of working visually. 83% of the information we process reaches our brains through our eyes. And for example, only 11% is through our ears. And when we are processing this visual information, 60% of our brain is involved in that. And that's also more than for any of our other senses. We are also very quick with our eyes. We recognize a known object in only a tenth of a second. And if we had to listen to a description of that object, of course, that would take us a lot longer. So a picture is not only worth 1,000 words, but it can also save a lot of time. And then there's the issue of attention. Every day, the average person has about 174 newspapers worth of text that are competing to be read. For example, that could be your email inbox today, the letters, the invoices, the text for work you receive, the actual newspaper you're getting online or on paper, or the magazines you buy, the terms and services for the new app you've installed. And now you maybe already know that you're not really reading all of these texts, at least when it comes to the terms and services. I have to admit, I don't. So we just learn to skip most of the stuff that isn't really interesting for us, or we don't think it really helps us. Just imagine now you're handing out a text to an employee. Imagine it being buried under those 174 newspapers. And you need to get out from under that pool of newspapers. You need to make something that is important really stick out. And using pictures will help you in the fight for that attention. But it also needs to be the right kind of picture. If you just add a nice stock photo of a team holding hands, that's not going to do it. It's also perceived as noise. It needs to be something that is interesting to look at, that you want to know more about, that you know that it's going to tell you something about the topic at hand. And these are the kinds of pictures I do and that I can help you doing too. So the next steps will be that I will talk a little bit more about the kind of pictures I draw, and in the end we will draw a picture together. And I can also already tell you, because we needed to find out something we can all do together, and because we're all from different companies and organizations, we can't really draw an individual strategy for an organization, but we can do something together that we are all facing at the moment. And that is the coronavirus situation and how it's going to affect our strategies for the next years, because it's going to really be a problem for us to face right now, and with its consequences in the future. And so we can all pool our ideas and create something about that together. And I hope you're looking forward to that. I'm an illustrator, so I'll just show off a little bit of the things I do. Drawings like this, for example. But I also have a background in psychology. And I always wanted to combine these two things in my job. And that's what I am lucky enough doing for the last about 9 years. I do illustrations and animations for business clients, and I draw their issues, their topics. Here I've listed some companies that are using pictures that I was involved in drawing. And they're all using it differently. There are all different topics, but usually they are using it for a long time. They are using it for years. For example, they show it in their onboarding process and use it to explain what their company does, etc. So I'm not your average illustrator or designer. I'm really specialized in something. And these are some of the topics I draw pictures about. For example, innovation, processes, changes, strategy pictures like today, or pictures that are HR related. And my pictures usually are big pictures. These are pictures that show complex topics with a lot of connections between the elements. That is something you can't just draw one issue in one picture, but you want to make a whole big poster with all the little subtopics and how they connect, really to draw the complexity there is. And I draw them in a bird's eye view, and you usually see a lot of little figures doing things, working at machines, selling things, working together, etc. And in that way, they are a bit of a mix between Where's Waldo pictures that you might know and an infographic. And companies often use them to help communicating certain topics to their employees. So it's for internal communication. And I will show you a bit more in a minute. So for example, this one. You can show in pictures, for example, how your product works. What are the use cases for the user who uses your products? What do they want to do? How they start using it? What features your product has? What are the steps in using? And what are all the different scenarios in which they can use it? Draw a big picture about that. Another picture could be drawing what your company does. For example, draw your whole value chain from the beginning to the end, from buying from suppliers to the service, and show all the unique challenges you face as a company. And another use of it is, for example, make a picture about who your product is for. What are the different target groups, different user groups? What can they do with your product? What are the differences in using that for different groups? And you can make a big picture about that. And of course, this is the picture that we will use as a background for today. You can draw a roadmap of your strategy and vision. And I always like these pictures a lot because they are really telling a story. They are telling an interesting story from where are we now until where do we want to go. And I want to explain the structure of this picture a little. You start at the lower left corner in this story picture. There is this building that you see where a part of it is burning and a part of it is just being taken out. And I called it the status quo square. This is where you are right now. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses as a company? At the upper right corner of the picture, where you see the little mountain and the sun shining, this is where you want to go. This is where you will find your goals and where the future is. But you already see that the journey can be quite dangerous, and you see the big canyon on the way. And this canyon, I called it Risk Canyon, is a place where you can draw the risks that you face, things that might make your company fail. And on the lower right corner of the picture, you already have a way drawn in that will lead you into this canyon, into the abyss alley. And here, this is a fun little exercise that you can also try to start with if you don't have any idea about the other parts yet. Here you draw the things that will make your company fail, that you would have to do in order to make it fail. And it will help you to find out what you should do. And then there's the other road. That's not the abyss alley, that will lead to the future. And it will make you pass the bridge over the canyon. But first you need to create the bridge. What are, for example, the necessary operations and measures that you will need? And in order to develop them, you also need to look at the customer, for example, who is standing already on the other side of the canyon. What are their needs? How will the needs change in the future? And then there is this trend city on the upper left of the picture that shows what are the changes in society that influence your business. What are your competitors doing, for example? You can draw it there. And what is happening politically. And even if your road is built perfectly, of course, there's still a fog of uncertainty on the upper right side. And you can also draw some things there that you cannot plan right now, but you can try to plan in the future. So you see a lot of different areas are in this picture, and they will help you to place your topics. For example, when you later think about how the coronavirus will influence your strategies, you can try to place your ideas, where do they belong in the picture, and you can somehow in this picture cluster them, and it will help you structure it. And in the end, you will have a story to tell about it. And before we look at the picture further, let me just talk a bit about the reasons for using a big picture like this. Some of the uses have to do with the drawing process. The process is already really valuable. And first, you gain more clarity while you are drawing, because the drawing process ends this fear of asking stupid questions. You need to ask them in order to know what you want to draw. Let me give you an example. There was a strategy workshop I went to, and there were already sitting at that workshop for 2 days. And I came in at the 3rd day just to draw the results. And about after 15 minutes, it became clear that I couldn't really draw it, because most of the people clearly didn't have the same understanding about some really basic things. And everybody just assumed in the 2 days before that everyone was on the same page, and nobody asked. Nobody asked the stupid questions I had to ask in the beginning of drawing. So they had to go back, talk about that. And in the end, I didn't have so much time for the picture to draw it, but we did it. And I think the picture method was really useful, because otherwise what they had talked about would have been maybe wasted, because they wouldn't have found out about the different understandings people had. The other advantage is you can use it to create something together. It's an ideal method to use at a workshop, for example. And you can also use it online, because you have screen sharing and stuff like that. You can take photos and upload them, and you can use it remotely. And the good thing about it is you can use the result right away after your workshop. You can take a photograph, send it to the participants. You don't need anyone to write a perfectly sounding text or something like that. The next thing is, by drawing a picture, you avoid abstract language and empty phrases, because you just can't draw that. It's not possible. If it's too abstract, there's no picture that comes into your head. For example, take sustainability. It's a really nice sounding word, gets included everywhere. You might want to include it everywhere, but now you have to draw what sustainability really is if you want to have it in the picture. And now you have to bring it down from that abstract level to, what do you really do that is sustainable? How does it show? What are your examples? And the final picture is also really useful. First of all, it's a great storytelling tool. You can use it, for example, show it with PowerPoint, or put it up at the wall as a poster and hold a presentation with the picture, because the picture will help you memorize the topics that you want to talk about without being too rigid of a structure. It's not like having a text pre-prepared. When there are questions, you can go to the part of the picture that will talk about these questions, and you can start from there. And it will help you really tell a story instead of just recounting facts. It's also a wonderful tool for dialogue. You can hang it somewhere in your company, for example, in a conference room or in a break room. And those discussions and talks about this topic will start by themselves. They will just happen. People stand there with their coffee and say, okay, what's that? And they will start talking about it. And also, you don't have to explain the whole picture every time. You just look at the parts that your audience cares about, and that makes it a really flexible tool to use it. So now that we have looked at that, I will open my drawing app and give you a little preview how it works to draw like this. So I've opened the strategy picture now. And now I can zoom in to certain areas and maybe help you develop some ideas. Let's look at the status quo square in the beginning. And maybe you want to draw about a strength that your company already has. For example, you already have options to work remotely. You are already using tools, for example, for video conferences. And you can draw, for example, this figure here, talking, maybe with a headset, to somebody elsewhere. So draw something like that. Then we were talking about the way to the future, and it might start with values. And one of the values, if we look at this working remotely, is that the company cannot control people too much who are working from home. And some are really insecure about that, and some have learned how to trust. And that would be a value that is needed right now. And in order to show trust, I'm thinking about, well, what is it, for example, that you don't want if you trust, that you don't do anymore? And I was thinking about little marionettes that have strings attached to their arms, and some companies who don't know how to trust might view their employees like that they control their every move. And in order to show that you are trusting, you take the big scissor, and cut those strings. So that would be a picture symbolizing that, for example. Let's look at the client or customer. Are there different things that they expect right now? For example, maybe they don't want to leave their homes. They are maybe also working from home. Maybe if you deliver things, they are expecting delivery. And then let's look at the measures. For example, it might be necessary more and more, especially when sanctions or when the methods of keeping everybody at home are being released a bit more, then it will be more and more necessary to look at who gets infected and to quarantine them quickly so that they don't infect others in your company. So I'll just use this little glass thingy. I don't know the exact English word. To explain quarantine. Maybe we can add a stopwatch in order to explain that this happens quickly. And let me zoom out. And here you see that some parts of the pictures are getting filled and filled more and more. And I would like you to think about parts of the strategy. You can choose the field that you would like, that you have an idea about it, and do a little drawing on your paper and write down for what part of the picture this drawing is, and maybe 1 or 2 words about what the topic is. For example, yeah, now for the quarantine, write its measures or bridge, and for this remote work, write status quo strength. And then in the end, we know where the different ideas need to go in the picture, and we can assemble them in Photoshop and create afterwards, after this workshop, a complete picture with all your different ideas.